Hey, everybody, this is Brian Smith, your host of Grief to Growth, back with another episode. And today I've got a fascinating guest with me. Her name is Ellen Whealton. And I'm going to read Ellen's bio, and then we're just going to have a little conversation. Ellen is an MA, an MT-BC, we'll find out what that is, a board-certified music therapist, an energy healer, and she lives in San Diego, California. She has a master's in transpersonal counseling with an emphasis in music therapy from Naropa University in Boulder. She is trained in the Bonny Method of Guided Imagery and Music, Holotropic Breathing, Reiki, and Aroma-Release. She's also an instructor for online courses and presents CEUs for music therapists and counseling psychologists around the globe. Ellen's approach stems from a life-changing head injury and subsequent near-death experience. And this event gave Ellen firsthand knowledge of the immense web of love and support that is available to all of us at all times. Over the past 14 years, Ellen has developed an approach that combines transpersonal counseling, music therapy techniques, meditation, crystal singing bowls, journeying through essential oils, guided imagery, and intuition. Her goal is to help you use music and imagery as a tool to connect with something greater, recognize your untapped potential, and discover how to lead an inspired, content, and harmonious life. So with that, I want to welcome Ellen.
Hi, thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Ellen, I appreciate you doing this. I know you said you have a little bit of a cold, but we're gonna soldier through this. So I really appreciate you doing this with me today.
Of course.
So I've heard a little bit about your story, but before we get into your near-death experience, tell me about what your life was like before this happened.
Well, I was a child. The interesting thing is I don't remember much from before my accident.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I lost most of my memory, but I was just a typical child. I liked to ride horses, and my parents said I was very happy, and I loved music. And that's kind of what I know about myself.
And what age were you when you had your near-death experience?
I was 12.
You were 12 years old. Okay. So tell me about the experience.
Well, I used to ride horses,
Mm-hmm.
and my parents said I loved horses and it was great. One day at a Western lesson, I went and the cinch slipped. It wasn't on tight enough. And the horse kicked me in the head when the saddle, first of all, the saddle kind of tilted to the side, they said. And then I held on for a while, fell off the horse, stepped on my stomach, and then reared up and kicked me in the temple.
Mm.
Um, I was in a coma for 5 days, and my parents were told that I was pretty deeply within the coma and that they should play music or old movies or something to try and stimulate my mind. So that's what they did. They did old home movies for a while, and then switched to something that actually eventually woke me up. So I'll tell you about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But before I woke up, I was taken to another place. And I did come out of the coma to music, but I had this amazing and cathartic and beautiful near-death experience before I woke up. So it
Okay.
was powerful.
So you're in this coma. Your parents are playing music and home movies and videos and things to stimulate you. So what was going on with you though?
So with me, I feel like I went from a state of nothingness to being completely taken into another realm, right? So
Mm.
I found myself on a wooden raft first,
Hmm.
and that's not the white light that everybody sees, but I was on a wooden raft on a
Mm-hmm.
pink kind of ethereal cloud looking space, right? So on one side I knew was heaven, and the other side I knew to be hell, but I wasn't afraid. It wasn't like, or that's how I contextualized it in my mind. But on my left was a man, a bald, thin, younger man with long brown robes on. And in front of me was who I knew to be Jesus. And before, they didn't speak much, they only communicated kind of through thoughts. So I felt very safe and protected. And I met with them first. And then I feel like I was taken to this other place full of light and color and music, amazing music. And then what happened was really powerful. I first experienced this place as you would, like where you're in it and you see it and you feel it. But then I became love. I became love.
Hmm.
I felt the love surrounding me. I felt it like a blanket, like a weight on me. It was the most beautiful and profound experience of my entire life. then after feeling it on the edges of me, I just became the love. I totally just melted into it. And I don't know how long I was there. Um, I don't know. I don't know anything about time or space or anything like what was happening. But then I was taken back to the raft and given a choice. And I could either stay there or I could go back and live my life. And then we
Hmm.
had this whole communication, this whole conversation after that, where a lot was revealed to me. So much was revealed to me. Um, and that's kind of where the heart of this experience comes from, is what I guess Jesus communicated to me. And there are some really cool kind of synchronicities that happened as a result. I realized later that the man on my left who was protective was Buddha.
Hmm.
And I realized that when I went to a Buddhist university later. But the conversation on the raft is really my takeaway from the experience. Yeah.
Okay. So they were both on the raft with you. So if I'm following this correctly, so you find yourself on the raft, they're both on the raft with you. Then you find yourself in another place where it's interesting when I talk to people who've had near-death experiences, they talk about feeling the love. And it sounds like it's not a feeling like we get of love. You actually kind of almost physically feel it, right?
Yeah. It's an experience of love. It is,
Hmm.
you are love, you are connected, and nothing matters. Remember, nothing that you worry about on this plane, nothing that you think about. I remember receiving that message very early in the experience,
Mm-hmm.
that so many of these things, they'll be revealed to us anyway, and they don't matter, right? They don't matter, because all that matters is love,
Mm-hmm.
and a few other things that kind of have come with me from that experience. But you become that love. It transcends the experience of love on earth.
Mm-hmm.
Different kind of love. Different kind of love. Beautiful love. Beautiful.
So what were some of the things they communicated to you? You get some lessons from this also.
Yeah, so much. I mean, I could have been there an eternity and I wouldn't even know. I mean, so much came out of it. First, I was shown the path of my family, which is really interesting. I was shown that um, it was okay if I stayed because I wanted to stay. I mean, to
Mm-hmm.
be honest, I wanted to be in that place and felt like I could do so much from there. But
Mm-hmm.
I also knew that living was a gift. And before I decided, they showed me that my parents would be okay. Everyone would be fine. There was no wrong answer at all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they wouldn't, my dad and my brothers wouldn't actualize their purpose on earth in this life if I were
Mm-hmm.
to stay.
Okay.
And that was a big part of my decision to come back, right? So, but even bigger than that was that I felt this overwhelming sense of gratitude. The other messages were very clear. It's about connection and relationships with other people. It's about making a difference. It's about that we all have a purpose. Everyone here is here for a reason, 100%. And it's a gift. It's a gift to be alive, because that's when we learn and our souls can grow, right? And that was a huge thing for me to bring back, because that's how I live my life now. Everything that I do has to match with my experience of what I call heaven, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I felt overwhelmingly grateful that I was going to go back. And I remember telling them through my thoughts, and telling Jesus, I guess, was the one I was communicating with,
Mm-hmm.
that I would give thanks every night to be alive. Like I would, and I do that. I do that. And then I said I want to heal people with music. And
Hmm.
that's when I went into the next phase of my near death experience, which is equally as powerful as being in heaven, I think.
Okay.
And that's when I went into the darkness again, but it was a warm darkness. It was a comforting.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see a staff of music in the distance, very far away. And every note was a different color, but I couldn't hear anything.
Hmm.
It's like only one of my senses could work at a time, but I could see the notes moving along the staff. And then I just pulled that vision closer to me as much as I could. And then it went away, and I heard a little pinprick of sound, like a little light, like a period on the end of a sentence, but way, way, way down, right? On kind of to the right is how I describe it, like way, way tiny.
Hmm.
And I focused in on the sound, right? Like until it got louder and louder and louder, until it was so loud it was just the only thing I could experience.
Hmm.
And then I opened my eyes, the sound shut off, because again, I was like having one sense at a time. And I was in the ICU, and the nurses came over, and there was music playing at my bedside in a Disney movie that was predominantly music, right? So
Okay.
the music is what woke me up, and it's why I came back, and that's why I'm a music therapist now, because it's all full circle. It has to come back to that. Everything in my life has to connect with that experience.
So would you say maybe you were kind of giving your life's purpose when you were having this experience?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
100%. There's never been a question. I didn't know that there was a thing called music therapy, but when I came back, I knew that I was here to heal people with music.
Hmm.
And to me, I shy away from the word heal because we're taught not to use that word and that it's wrong to think that you can heal someone. But I remember very clearly that's what I said. Like, that's what I communicated. That's what I wanted to do. And music is healing and it is powerful. And there was music in that place. I mean, it was very different than the music we have here,
Hmm.
but it was part of the whole experience. The
Do you
light,
remember the music from that place?
I would know it if I heard it, but I couldn't recreate it.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious about that because most people that when they do describe the music there, they say they can't. And I know some people have tried to make some efforts to recreate some of it. So I don't know if you heard any of that or not.
I haven't. You
Okay.
know, I shied away from listening to other near-death experiences for
Hmm.
so long because I didn't share mine publicly until the video that you saw. That was the first time I'd ever gotten out and shared it publicly because I didn't want people did tell me, well, you were in a coma, it was a dream, right?
Right. Right.
But it's the most real experience I've ever had. I mean, I can still feel and recognize and see and hear all the things that I did then, where my memory now is just, it's not good. But
Yeah.
that's different.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, but
Well, most of us don't remember things from when we're 12 years old quite that vividly. So,
no, definitely not. And I don't remember anything before that. Like, and as a head injury survivor, there are usually lots of memory issues that come with that. But when I woke up, I was walking the next day. They said that there was only one other person in the state of Texas that had lived through the same injury that I had at all, had lived.
hmm.
I'm not talking about the horse kicking me, but that injury there and where I was, because I was flown to Waco and treated by some of the doctors that worked on JFK because they were kind of at the end of their practice. And so I started in one hospital in Hillsborough and they sent me to Waco. And they said the other person who lived was also a teenage girl. She was 14 and she was in a wheelchair for the rest of her life.
Wow.
I felt so blessed that I could not only walk, but I could talk and had very minimal. I had a little bit of stuff I had to work through, but
Hmm.
I'm just so thankful. It's so thankful.
So you come back from this experience, and did you share it with your parents right away, or how did that go?
Um, I shared it with my parents. My parents know my story.
Hmm.
I think that one of the first people I shared it with was my youth minister. Um, but I didn't share it with many people. It felt sacred to me, and I felt the need to protect it.
Hmm.
And there was only one other person I've ever met, because you know how sometimes we share our stories and we meet other people for a reason. I mean, that's the other thing, is there are no accidents in life. That's another big lesson,
Hmm.
that people are placed in our lives to teach us something and to take us to the next level, right? So one time I was sitting with a woman who was doing our mortgage paperwork or something. And I told her my story. I don't know why. And she said that her son had a very similar story of being on a wooden raft. And I could not believe it. And that's the only person I've ever met that had a similar story. I always hear about the white light in the tunnel.
Yeah.
But It's
Well,
kind of,
in my experience with near-death experiencers is the events they're unique.
yeah,
They seem to be tailored to the person, and there are some common elements like the white light and the tunnel. And I think people that may just be starting to discover this think, well, everybody goes through a tunnel and everybody sees the white light, but that's definitely not true. Some people never see the white light. So there are these common elements, but they're not universal.
right. I think what is universal are the messages that you come back with.
Yeah.
You know, that overwhelming sense of gratitude, like gratitude that's so immense and powerful that you can actually feel the expansion of your heart.
Hmm.
Like the gratitude where every single thing that happens, no matter how bad it may seem, you can find you can find that nugget of appreciation in it. The knowing that life is not, it can be short. We live each day like it's our last, right? And
Hmm.
love fully and connect fully and never find any reason to not step into your path and your journey, right? That whole no accidents thing, and the fact that we're protected and guided and we have love around us at all times. The whole feeling of bringing light into whatever you do, that's huge for me. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Those are some pretty powerful lessons. So how do we relate that to people or people who are in grief? How do we take
Yeah.
those lessons and relate those to our grief?
So grief is hard. I mean, it's hard to think about, how can I be thankful for something when I'm grieving, when I've had this huge loss. But if you flip it on its head and ask yourself, what are the powerful, transcendent messages and feelings and experiences, right, in that loss that you can take to propel you forward? And how can you use it to further your own journey or to maybe see the power that you hold in your life, right? And that your life is valuable and you have the time, right? And I think the other piece of this is that the other side is not a bad place. It's a beautiful place. It is not like I don't feel like we're done. I don't feel like we're done when we move on. I feel like we transcend this life. And
Mm-hmm.
so when people pass in my life, of course I miss them, seeing them in the real world right next to me or whatever, but I know
Right.
they're doing more from another place and they're happy and it's beautiful, and when you're there, you're whole. You're completely at peace and whole. And somehow there's comfort in that,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And that, I think if everyone understood that beauty and that love, they would they would feel differently about, the physical loss of someone.
Yeah. And did you see any loved ones when you were on the other side, or just Jesus and Buddha?
Just Jesus and Buddha. When I
Okay.
went to what I call heaven, I had a sense that there were others with me,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't see their physical body. For me, it was more of a feeling. It was more of an experience, right? So I knew that they were there, but I didn't know who they were. Um, but I did know Jesus because I grew up. That's the context and spirituality that I grew up in,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I knew Jesus, but I didn't know Buddha because I would recognize like the larger big belly Buddha, right?
Right.
But until I went to Naropa and learned about Buddha and his teachings, I didn't know I didn't know that visual of him, right? Until I saw a picture. I saw a picture in Naropa when I was there,
Oh,
and
really?
yeah, a painting, and it was a young Buddha in brown robes, and I thought, oh, that's him. Yeah, full circle. And I
Yeah.
learned so much, because that was the other thing. Oh yeah, the whole spirituality thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I grew up believing one thing. I mean, my family, I don't remember it obviously, but I came out of this experience believing that's all love.
Mm-hmm.
It's all love by a different name. There's no right or wrong. Um, and that's just what I came away with. I mean, I don't know if that's true of everyone, but so for me, I know that to love and accept and embrace everyone,
Mm-hmm.
everyone, no matter what they believe or think, or, it doesn't even matter.
So were you raised, you were Christian, but what, Catholic or
No,
Baptist or
Methodist.
Methodist?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. But you said and again, reiterate, you don't have any memories of what happened before this. So you didn't remember what you had been taught about your faith or anything. Is that
No.
right? Okay.
No, when I woke up, though, I didn't really know who people were. And I became very good at pretending.
Oh,
Very good.
really?
Because I would get a sense of their energy. I would know that I loved them, but I wouldn't know necessarily who they were. So, um, and that was interesting in my recovery. In a lot of ways, I had to become a very good pretender, just nod and smile when people were talking about things that I did not know what it meant.
Yeah.
Um, so, I mean, I kind of got the label of being a little ditzy, right? Because people could probably tell I was not cluing into what people were talking about. But it took a few years for me to kind of get back into like understanding language and kind of uh, the meaning behind things, and like relearning things that I didn't know that everybody else seemed to know. So,
But when you came back, you still had all your cognitive skills, right? You could still speak and
yeah,
read
well,
and
yeah, I had a few words mixed up. So the language, excuse me,
Mhm.
the language was probably the one area that I really needed. What's fascinating, though, is I still could play piano.
Oh,
I
you
still
could.
play flute. Yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, I relearned some fingerings wrong because I was a performance major in undergrad before I went to, music therapy. Um, and my teacher was like, I don't know where you learned to play an E that way, but it sounds about right. And I had accomplished it and mastered it with these alternate fingerings that apparently I had just made up because I didn't really know them back, and I was trying to fake it till I make it kind of thing in
Okay.
recovery. So I threw myself into music to recover, really. And
Okay.
that's where I really bring in my messages now when I work with people. It's through um, music programs of classical music, and then playing the crystal bowls, and then doing imagery on top of them. And the angels kind of came back with me. I do have beings of light that support my work and give me insight and messages when I'm working with people. And that has been profound
Hmm.
because it's just, they're always with me, and they support what I'm doing. And I feel so lucky that I can tap into that still. That's kind of cool.
So yeah, tell me how does that work? How do you experience these beings of light?
So before, they would give me messages or I would see visions, and they still do that sometimes, and they're
Hmm.
always kind of different. But more recently, in the past year or so, they've been coming in formation to me. So they would, I'll have a circle, right? And I'll have the bowls, and people will be experiencing what they experience with the music.
Hmm.
And I'll see like angels behind people, right? And that will be one formation. And another formation is they'll show up in rows, like they'll stand really stoic and they're holding something, and they have kind of a red sash on, and they just stand rows and rows and rows and rows and rows of angels,
Hmm.
just as far as goes back, but they don't move and they don't come in. The ones around people, they move. And then, and sometimes more recently, I was doing a meditation, and then there was kind of concentric circles of angels, like half circles, and then there were three standing in front of me, and I received a vision in the meditation about how the divine masculine and divine feminine are starting to work together now, and that they've come together to support each other instead of being like one or the other.
Hmm.
um, and that's been really powerful. And sometimes I see visions, and sometimes people's loved ones will come through to me, but it's always different, and usually there's music involved. It's
Hmm.
when music is playing is when I can bring in that kind of energy. So cool.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. So so obviously you're still getting messages, you're still working with these beings of light from the other side, and they're participating in your work. So tell me about your master's in transpersonal counseling with an emphasis in music therapy.
Yeah. So The transpersonal counseling degree is similar to humanistic or experiential. If you're kind of familiar with the different branches of psychology, it brings in the spiritual element, and it just recognizes that we are all spiritual beings, right? Living in a human existence. And it acknowledges and recognizes that within a session, most counseling or therapeutic, modalities will not bring in people's spiritual background.
Right.
This not only brings it in, but we incorporate different alternative modalities like imagery, breath work, Reiki, that actually invite in the spiritual shifts. So that's my master's, and it was offered through Naropa University, which was founded as a Buddhist university, and we learned first to have some self-care by meditating regularly every day and having meditation instruction. So it really kind of embraces the whole person rather than just a behavioral issue or a parental or dysfunctional family. It's more
Right.
who you are, what you connect with, and then helping you connect with that.
Yeah, I think that's very important. I think one of the issues that we have in our culture is we've forgotten who we are. And if we start from the point of not knowing who we are and we're trying to help people with their issues, we're starting from, my belief, a faulty foundation. And so traditional, as you said, traditional psychology and psychiatry and traditional medicine, you can't fix the whole person when you're missing what a person actually is,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's it right there. That's it. And this is just a new way. You're really missing the mark if you're not looking at the whole person and if you're not first caring for yourself and coming from that place of connection on your own.
Yeah, it's interesting. We call it a new way, but it's really an old way. It's really
It
the
is.
ancient way. And the more more I look at this stuff, the more I'm like, we've just forgotten. We've
Yeah.
forgotten that traditional medicine, back when it was traditional medicine, when it was treating the whole person as a spirit,
Yeah.
we kind of forgot, like I said, who we are, and now we're going. I think we're going back to the old ways.
Coming back to it. Yeah, that's so true. And I think there's something to say for remembering source. I think that we forget source as well, unless you have a spiritually transformative experience, right? Or near death experience. Maybe you might not have that framework in which to look at your life in the world. I think children can bring us into those memories of who we are and where we come from. But I think that we have opportunities to remember, right? And so these transpersonal experiences can help you remember.
Hmm.
Just a deep imagery process with music and guidance, right, can help you connect to source in a way that may change your life, right? It may
Yeah.
remind you of why you're here or of the love supporting you. And that's huge with grief, right?
Hmm.
You don't want to feel isolated or alone. But if you recognize that you're always surrounded by love, always surrounded by light. And if you close your eyes and meditate and call in the light, right, no matter what your belief is, you can find some comfort. And it does feel like you're connecting somehow to that person that you've lost through the light, because we're all connected through that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I think I heard you mention earlier, correct me if I'm wrong, you said there are no accidents. Is that something that
Right.
you learned on the other side?
Absolutely. No accidents at all.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to remember that in our day to day. And
Yeah.
we always think, something's happening to me. But you can always ask, well, what if this is something, what if I acted as if I chose for this to happen? And not like you're choosing bad things to happen to you, but after they've happened, if you say, if I had chosen for this to happen, what would the message be?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm going through that with my own life right now with a divorce that was unexpected.
Hmm.
And so I ask myself, what if I had chosen this for myself? And how could I live my life as if I had chosen it so that it becomes a framework in which I can help other people? and I can grow personally rather than being caught in the devastation of my life not being what I thought it would be. Right.
Yeah, I really like the way you put that, Ellen, because I work with a lot of parents who've lost children, whose children, I hate that phrase lost because they're not lost, but our children have transitioned. And so when we talk to them about there are no accidents, and I hear you talk about gratitude and how important gratitude is, and the reaction is, how can I be grateful for this? How can I be grateful for the worst thing that could possibly have ever happened to me? And how could I possibly plan this? And if God planned it, then why is he punishing me?
And I think about that a lot, especially around my friend Tawny, who just lost her 7-year-old son.
Mm-hmm.
And she's been coming to my workshops. And I remember we were doing a workshop on gratitude, and that's the one she wanted to come to. And I thought, wow, it just happens to be that she's coming to a gratitude workshop, and how can I support her? Because I was thinking just that. But what I've seen from her has really shifted my mentality. So
Mm-hmm.
rather than saying we're grateful that something happened, right? We're grateful that they were here and that we had that time. And I've seen her shift from, I mean, she's devastated, obviously. There are no words, right? It's just no words. But lately she's been saying she's trying to make a conscious effort to connect with what she had so
Mm-hmm.
that she can make a difference for others. So they've taken his memory, Gavin, and they've created Gavin's Superheroes, which is a fundraising to bring awareness to what happened to her son, and so that it might not happen to other children, and
Mm-hmm.
to share, because that was his dream, to be a superhero.
Mm-hmm.
So they're trying to use this idea of what he wanted for his life and give gratitude that he brought his energy into the world for the time that he was here,
Mm-hmm.
and then find a way to help others through his memory. And I'm not saying you can be grateful. I mean, of course, it's hard when something happens, but they're still with us, and that short time that we had, maybe remembering that
Mm-hmm.
gratitude. It's hard. It's not easy. It's not easy
Yeah,
to find it. It's it's a practice. It
it
is a
is a practice,
it is
absolutely.
a practice.
And I like the way you put that when you talked about it, because I think it's a very gentle approach. It's like, what if I had planned this? People don't have to have this belief, but try it. Because the thing that's happened has happened. So we have a choice as to how we look at it. So we can look at it as, maybe I planned this, and if I did, then what is? Or we could look at it and say, I'm a victim of a cold universe or a mean God. So it's a choice that we have. One thing I would just add to what you said in terms of being grateful for the time that we had with them. I work with an organization called Helping Parents Heal, and we're very much into what I call the continuation of life, model of grief. So my daughter, who passed 15, in 2015, she's still here with me, and she had a huge impact while she was here, but she actually
Hmm.
continues to have an impact, and I'm really grateful for that. So I do, what you said, definitely miss the physical, would do anything to have her back.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, my life goes on. And as you said, I believe what your lesson is, we have a purpose for being here.
Yeah.
So we can say, what's my purpose for being here? And what do I do from here?
Yeah. And focus on your purpose and your journey. Yeah.
So
I
tell me
saw.
about your music therapy. 'Cause I'm really intrigued by that. Asking you about your therapy, I'm really intrigued by it because music is a huge part of my life. I love music. There's a new show. What's it called? Zoe's Incredible Playlist or something like
Oh, yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And that's my life. I mean, I go through life and I'll hear something and the music starts playing in my head.
Yeah.
And I do meditation. So tell me about the work that you do, because you incorporate a lot of really interesting things: sound therapy and music and aromatherapy. So tell me how
Oh,
that
yeah.
works.
Oh, I love it. And my practice has really developed and changed over the past 20 years. I guess I went to grad school. I got my degree about 19 years ago.
Hmm.
So it started with traditional music therapy, but then I realized I wasn't connecting to my purpose in doing that.
Mm-hmm.
When I experienced the Bonny Method of Guided Imagery and Music the first time, it was the closest that I had ever been to my near-death experience.
Hmm.
And when I realized that there was so much power and connection in that practice, I knew that I wanted to do it.
Okay.
So that's a big part of my practice is these music programs around different concepts like transition, grief, joy, relationships, um, everything from peak experiences, past lives. And the music programs were created based on research that came out of Stanis Groff's work back in the 60s, where he was actually using LSD in some studies, but
Mm-hmm.
they found that music can actually stimulate the brain in the same areas that LSD can. So you can have these really powerful cathartic imagery experiences through music, but you need to go through a very kind of deep process of first moving into the body, deeply into a state of relaxation, and then the music becomes the guide in which you travel through your unconscious mind. So
Wow.
you set an intention. So my work, then I brought in crystal singing bowls. When I experienced them, I guess like 10 years ago for the first time, I had a cathartic experience where the person who was leading the group started singing a song. Well, first of all, he started doing a Native American chant, which took
Mm-hmm.
me into a past life, right?
Hmm.
And I saw this vision of a huge, amazing vision. But then he started, we all had our eyes closed. He was singing bringing the bowls. He started singing a more popular song. And I found out later that my friend that I went with to this experience, that was her song with her brother who had passed away the month before.
Wow.
So it was just so powerfully cathartic. I said, I have to bring that into my sessions. So now I have a very unique framework. I don't think anybody else is doing this, where I use the crystal bowls to move people into that state of their body and somatic experiencing, getting into the body, really feeling the vibration, calling in the light, calling in the color, then right into the music. And the music will help them travel and understand what they need to know for themselves, because I'm not the person who's going to tell you what to do in your life. You are. You just need to tap into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then when I brought in Young Living essential oils, which are the highest frequency substance oils on
Mm-hmm.
the planet, right? I started noticing that people were traveling more quickly. So
Oh,
what would
really?
normally take 4 weeks was happening in the first session, right? And the first time I gave someone Angelica I just put it on my hands actually. The first week I put Angelica on my hands to ring the bowls, and something about the frequencies worked with the bowls, and people started having these amazing, like 10 out of 11 saw angels, right?
Wow. Okay.
I mean, and not just saw them, there were like little angel lights all over the room that I was working in. And then
Wow.
people were like transported up and given messages in the wings of angels, right? So, yeah. So I just brought those in right away. I was like, that has to be part of the session now. And then Reiki. And when
Mm-hmm.
I can do breath work, I'll bring that in as well. We've done all of it. It's just whatever modality can enhance our connection to source. My job is to use music first and foremost, right, to connect people with heaven.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I do.
And that's the Bonny Method of Guided Imagery and Music. So that's Bonny. And can I find out more about that on your website or?
Yeah, or you can look up, Bonny Method of Guided Imagery, and it talks about this woman who was a musician who had a spiritually transformative experience when playing the violin, and she
Mm-hmm.
created this practice, and it is amazing. This is all energy. We're working with energy. We're working with frequency, and music is just organized sound, right? So any sound, can be created and made into music. My
Mm-hmm.
bowls, I'm making I do the first, third, fifth, and then major seventh in the bowl. So like, right? So I try to keep it
Mm-hmm.
C, D, F sharp, A, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then C sharp. Um, and then that's a harmonious bowl experience. And sometimes you put the bowls next to each other and they're one step apart, and that's kind of binaural beats where you feel the dissonance in your body, and that's good too. So it's working with the frequency of the bowls and the sound, working with the structure of the music so your mind can really go and really tap into what you need to know, and then using the frequency of the oils to enhance it all and bring it
Wow.
together. And then you can use the oils. You can't take bowls everywhere you go, but you can use the oils in the palm of your hand every day with an affirmation. And there's a technique kind of similar to EMDR, I guess, where you do affirmation daily. That puts you in a practice of positive psychology, and you're pairing it with an essential oil that can move through the neuron into the amygdala. And
Mm-hmm.
that's really powerful, because then you're making changes on a physical level, and you're pairing your mind, your intention with your body, and you're moving out of fight or flight, right? So you're moving into relaxation, because that's what these oils can do. Not all oils can move through the neuron like this. Only kind of the medical grade. But yeah, and the higher frequency, the better. So the spruces, right? Northern lights. It's grown under the northern lights, like 700 megahertz.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so it's just a way of continuing the practice. Yeah.
So this sounds just like amazing. So I can find out more about this on your website, I assume. And that's wellnessmusictherapy.com.
That's it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I'm available if anyone has questions. They can email me. It's
Okay.
ellen@wellnessmusictherapy.com.
All right.
And I have a group for practitioners, which is the other side of my business, where I train other therapists and music therapists how to use essential oils, right, in their practice for limbic support. So the
Mm-hmm.
science, I've got this whole science side of me too, and I
Yeah.
love that. There's a Facebook group called Music Therapy and Essential Oils, and you just have to put a note in there where you heard about me, so
Okay.
that I know that I'll let you in. Otherwise, it's just for healthcare practitioners. But
Okay. So these are for people that want to be a practitioner and use music therapy along with essential oils. And that was music therapy and essential oils on
yeah,
Facebook? Okay.
yeah, and we also have doctors and nurses in there that aren't using music, but they're interested in the oils.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So I know you have a TV show also. I want to talk about that, Lessons from the Other Side on the Awake TV network.
Yes. Every Thursday right now at 10 a.m. live, you can see me on Awake TV.
Okay.
And the episodes are usually free for the first 24 hours. And then after that, you have to pay to see them. But I have guided imagery, meditations, manifestation, imagery experiences, usually with music,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes with the oils. And I'll tell you which oils you can use to enhance your intentions.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also share each week a different message that I received when I was on the raft,
Oh,
on the,
wow.
so it's called Lessons from the Other Side.
Mm-hmm.
You can look for my name on that website.
Okay. So is that, what's the website? Is it awaketv.com?
It is awaketv.com.
Okay. Yeah. We'll have to definitely have people look for that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it sounds like, it's really interesting talking to you how, you had this experience and you kind of came back with your life, not kind of, you came back with your life's purpose and now you're living it out.
Yes, totally. And what's amazing about that, and I think this is true for all of us, but it's definitely true for me, is that when I know I'm on the right path, things tend to just open up and they work.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm not, they don't. So I know when to change, right?
Mm-hmm.
And ever since I've started kind of moving in more deeply into my own spiritual path, it started in March, asking myself questions every day. Where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say, and to whom? Those questions I use with oils, obviously, because I want to anchor them. So on my feet, I put Valor. Where would you have me go? Joy on my heart. What would you have me do? Harmony. What would you have me say?
Mm-hmm.
And then divine release, to whom? And ever since that things have been magical. Things have been
Really?
happening. Opportunities have been opening up, and I've been guided very differently. And a woman who's really amazing for me, and you know her as well. She came up to me at a near-death experience conference a few months ago,
Mm-hmm.
and she gave me something and said, without knowing at all about the formations I was telling you about, I told you that the angels are coming in formation and I don't know what they mean.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just see them differently. She handed me something and said, these are going to tell you what the angels are trying to show you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so with her support, I've been learning more and opening myself more to receiving what I'm supposed to know moving forward. And it's been very powerful.
Yeah. That sounds great. It's for me, I'm trying to learn that lesson, how to be more open to my intuition and to, like you said, ask what should I do today? What do you want me to do today? To whether you think it's the source or God or higher self or whoever it is we're asking to, but there's looking for that guidance and then following it and just seeing where it leads.
Yeah.
Um, and knowing that everything is going to be okay gives us more permission or more freedom, I guess,
Mhm.
to take those chances and to look for those opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we're always guided, right? And even if you don't know or believe in a higher source, all you have to believe in is your own higher source, like your higher self, right? So just connecting with that to move into wherever you need to go. And when I'm lost and I don't know what to do or I'm confused, I just call in the light and I just sit and I breathe my oils and I listen to music
Mm-hmm.
and I imagine the light moving through me and cleansing and clearing, right? And then I ask those questions. I don't know what to do. Where would you have me go? What would you
Yeah.
have me do? What would you have me say and to whom? And it always reveals itself. So
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
It's really interesting. I just interviewed someone recently, and we were talking about similar things. And what it always comes back to with people, it's really a practice. And I think a lot of people are scared of that word because they're like, "What does that mean? Do I have to meditate an hour a day? I can't do that. I don't have time for that. I don't have the concentration for that." So, what would you say to those people?
I would say that even for me, I can't always dedicate an hour to meditate. And yeah, I do have some really powerful experiences. I have to schedule them, like I
Hmm.
want to do the bowl. So I'll make sure that I schedule that I'm doing the bowl work for other people and I use that for myself.
Right.
But as for this practice, the questions, they take 5 seconds. 5 seconds with oils before you get out of your bed. What 3 things are you grateful for? That you had a
Right.
good night's sleep, that you
Hmm.
like your comfortable mattress. It doesn't have to be anything, really huge. It's just that
Hmm.
practice of something, anything, gratitude, the questions before you go to sleep. I mean, I do this sometimes. I didn't get a chance to meditate. I'll call in the light and imagine it as I go to sleep and listen to music. And then I sometimes just go right to sleep from there. But I'm
Yeah.
at least giving it some time and space, right?
Right.
Or what I'm seeing more and more as I practice this more is being able to find your inner source, your higher self within in every moment, and just the more you practice, the more you'll get glimpses in the day where you're like, oh, I can call in my higher self. I can feel that flame within me, that light that I hold in my heart, right? I can feel it expand um, anywhere, even when you're driving, right? It's like, however you can connect to your higher self or to source or whatever, that's all you need. It doesn't have to be like 3-hour meditation sessions, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a really good point that you just made there. But as we start to just make these little changes every once in a while and take time for ourselves, because we can find time for everything else. Everybody's got a few minutes when you wake up in the morning, or a
Yep.
few minutes when you get in bed at night, to do
Yep.
something like this, to ask these questions and to practice gratitude. And that's actually a practice that I started probably within the last year or so.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
every morning before I get out of bed, I'm like, okay, what are 3 things I'm grateful for? And sometimes it's just, I'm really happy to be in my bed because it's nice and warm.
Yes. So simple.
Yeah.
And one practice they had us do at Naropa, we had lots of little meditation practices, was washing dishes in a contemplative way. So they would say, as you're washing the dishes, make it a practice. You feel the water in your hands. You're slowly kind of connecting and experiencing. So it doesn't have to be. It's kind of like, oh, there's a book. It was called the Finding the Magic in the Mundane, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even in our most mundane tasks, or some kind of lesson or annoyance or something that keeps coming on over and over again, is how can you ask yourself, well, what's the lesson in this? Or how can I make it into a practice of gratitude or a practice of meditation, right?
Yeah.
So it's
And there's
hard.
going to be things that go well, or maybe sometimes even when things aren't going well. What's the
Exactly.
lesson in this? How and look at how you react to that event. Um, just noticing, how am I reacting to this? Why am I reacting to it this way?
Yes. Because there's usually a lesson. If we have a strong reaction to something, it's usually about us, right?
Yeah.
It's something that we need to learn and that we need to connect with. There's a message there. And so, really diving in and asking, okay, what is it that I need to know from this? What do I need to learn before I move on? Because honestly, those lessons, they just keep coming back. And that's another big message that I got from the other side, is that we will keep learning the same lesson until we actually get it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We'll get it. We'll get that lesson louder and louder and louder, because it's part of our karmic or our pathway or our spiritual journey or whatever we're supposed to learn here.
Well, I think it's kind of part of our plan, right? So if we came here to learn something, if we do have a plan and we came here to learn something and we don't get it the first time, and again, you can look at it, source is sending it to you, or you're sending it to yourself. You're saying, okay, didn't quite get that. Let me take another shot at it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Those things that keep us connected, right?
Yeah. Well, Ellen, it's been a real pleasure meeting you. Before I let you go, I'd like for you to just tell our listeners where they can reach you.
Well, I'm easiest to reach on Facebook and Instagram. If you want to find me there, it's
Mm-hmm.
Ellen Whealton. But music therapy and essential oils is where I really kind of teach about frequency, and especially plant-based and natural frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
I have music therapy and essential oils on Instagram. I have a website, wellnessmusictherapy.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a practice here in San Diego, North County, San Diego, but I do travel around the world for different conferences and things. So
Indeed. Okay.
yeah, I'm going down to San Antonio in a couple weeks, and I was on the East Coast a little while ago. So sometimes I'll travel with my bowls, and sometimes I'll travel with the oils and teach people. So yeah, so I'm all around and I'm here if anyone has questions. And I'm just so grateful that I got to meet with you today
Yeah.
and
Well,
share
for
my
for
thoughts.
those listening, I'm going to spell your last name. It's Whealton, and I'm going to put everything in the show notes so people can find your websites and stuff in the show notes. But for anybody just listening, it's Ellen, Ellen, and her last name is Whealton.
Yes.
So, Ellen, I really appreciate you soldiering through on this. I know it was kind of hard to get through with the cold, but you did a great job. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And it was great. It's such a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, great meeting you too. And I have to give a shout out to Lilia for connecting
Yes,
us. She's amazing. She's a force. So hopefully
she is
she'll.
amazing. She is. Yes.
Yeah, Ellen, have a great rest of your day.
Okay, you too.
Bye. That's it for another episode of Grief to Growth. I sure hope you got something out of it. Please stay in contact with me by reaching out at www.grieftogrowth.com. That's grief, the number 2, growth.com. Or you can text the word growth to 31996. That's simply text growth, GROWTH, to 31996. Since you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure you're subscribed. So hit the subscribe button and then hit the little bell here, and it'll notify you when I have new content. Always, please share the information if you enjoy it. That helps me to get more views and to get the message out to more people. Thanks a lot and have a wonderful day.